asking for it when we're in need of it. Because guess what? Our partner can't read our minds.
Right. Yes.
Another one of
Most
those
importantly.
another one of those societal things that we think, yeah, if it's true love, then we'll always be in harmony. It will always feel good and safe. And my partner will just know without me having to say. But that's bypassing the vulnerability that's part of every connected relationship.
Hello, welcome to season 3 of the How Are You Really podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Faryal Mallick. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist. Here's episode 1. Today's episode is Beyond the Honeymoon, Nurturing Lasting Relationships. This is a really good topic because all of us could use some skills in our relationships, not just couples, but also other relationships. Yolanda Harper, who is our guest speaker for today, is an amazing couples therapist here in Tampa. I'm just going to quickly introduce her and then we will start talking to her. She is a licensed clinical social worker with 15 years of experience specializing in helping individuals heal from trauma and helping couples deepen their relationship. She's an author, podcast co-host, TEDx speaker, and a faculty member at the Relational Life Institute, where she teaches other practitioners the art and science of relationality. Yolanda is a warm-hearted music and nature lover who has a strong faith and loves hiking and trail life. She is real, a therapist, mental health thought leader, entrepreneur, soul sabbatical doula, wife of 30 years, and mama always to her 3 grown children and 2 golden doodles, but she is always human first, committed to the journey as a fellow traveler. Welcome, Yolanda. I am so happy that you joined me today on this amazing episode. I am so excited to talk about just couples and relationships and love.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Faryal.
Of course. So I'm going to simply start with just tell us about what you do as a couples
Yeah.
counselor.
Yeah. Well, that's a broad question. I actually started my career as a trauma therapist.
Okay.
Really because of my own history of trauma, the way that I saw it play out throughout my life and in the world around me. And then as I went along, I really started to become even more curious about the impact of trauma on relationships. And so that led me into a deep dive in trying to find a couples modality, right? A way of studying, doing couples therapy that would match all of that and would go deeper, right? There's some great couples modalities out there. And the big ones, the ones that I had trained in initially, didn't really go deeper into the underlying patterns and histories and all of that kind of stuff. And so along the way, I found Relational Life Therapy, the work of Terry Real, and that just really hit all of those points. And so I studied it. I became certified in it. Now I'm on faculty with the Relational Life Institute. And so that, they say society says relationships are hard work, but nobody really talks about what that hard work is. And so this is getting into the underlying patterns that every relationship has that keep us from having the relationships that we want.
Yeah.
So I do that
Yes.
work with couples individually on a weekly basis. I do that work with couples in an intensive format. And then my husband and I, he's also certified in this work. And we host 2-day workshops or boot camps where we work with small groups and help couples deepen and better their relationships.
Yeah. So I do not know anything about relational life therapy.
Yeah, that's okay.
And since I met you, any couples that come to me and need couples therapy, I send them your way.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. I know. I didn't know about it until a colleague, I was talking about trying to find a model that went deeper, and a colleague said, I think you should check out this model in Terry Real's work. Otherwise I wouldn't have known about it either. So it's been a game changer for me professionally and also personally.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited to learn more about it.
Yeah.
Let's start with just in a nutshell what the concept is. Mhm.
So the concept of RLT, I think what is true, but we don't talk a lot about, is that all of us learn to be in relationship from what we learn and experience and are modeled and react to from what I call our origin story, from our early life
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah.
And in doing that, some things that we learn and that are modeled are really helpful and productive, and a lot of things aren't. So RLT helps us to get an idea of what we call the losing strategies that we have
Okay.
come to learn in our lives that are really shooting us in the foot, that made sense maybe in our past, but are really shooting ourselves in the foot to get the relationships that we're looking for now.
It sounds like one of the things that you do is you see how trauma is affecting somebody's relationship, romantic relationship, let's
Yeah,
let's say
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. So when somebody comes to you, what do you, like, start with? Like, what do they tell you? Like, what do you
yeah,
ask, and
yeah.
where does that
I
start?
love
Yeah.
this. Yeah, yeah. Well, we start by asking what we call the miracle question.
Mhm,
I want to get an idea about what they're looking for, what each partner is looking for,
mhm,
and
mhm,
so want to hear about the relationship that they hope to have that they don't
mhm.
have now.
Yeah.
And I'll ask really specifically, like, what does that look like? What does better communication mean? What will you be doing as you communicate better? What does deeper intimacy mean? What does that look like? What will the two of you be doing? And then the flip side of the coin is what's getting in the way right now.
Yeah.
And that's where we can start exploring what is happening in the relationship in real time, to get a better understanding of those underlying patterns.
Yeah.
And, trauma is a big word as well. And I think,
Mhm.
as I say trauma, what I mean by that is relational trauma,
Yeah.
right? Again, we all have ways in which we learn. We all have ways in which our parents and caregivers, in many ways, are doing the best job that they can. And sometimes those things still kind of leave a mark on our spirits, our souls, our psyches, the way that we learn to be in relationships. So that's what I mean when I say trauma.
Yeah. The patterns that we've observed, I always talk about how depending on parents, grandparents, aunts, uncle, whoever we see how they're interacting with each other, and that's the example of love that we carry.
Yeah. And in today's vernacular, in pop psychology, we talk a lot about attachment styles or pursuer,
Mhm,
distancer, and those kinds of things. And so,
mhm.
those are some examples of how we learn how to be in relationship that don't really
Yeah.
serve us.
Yeah. And so, when couples come to you usually, so I understand there's different, like, phases of a relationship, or,
Yeah.
different phases that couples go through.
Yeah.
What do they present with?
9 times out of 10, when a couple or a partner calls, it's always about wanting to improve communication.
Mhm.
And usually that's code for whatever the negative pattern is in the relationship and how the couple is having difficulty in navigating through it. Sometimes it's something fairly big, like affair recovery or some sort of betrayal.
Mhm.
And other times it's, wow, we get into these high conflict situations pretty regularly when we're trying to talk through something different. It
Yeah.
gets really heated pretty quickly. Sometimes one part of the couple tends to get more heated, and the other partner kind of withdraws. And so, kind of working through those dynamics. So those are some general examples of what couples are struggling with as they come in.
Yeah. So I don't know how, people come to you, but, like, a lot of the times when individuals are coming to me, they're
Mhm.
chasing happiness, right? And I
Yeah.
always say that happiness is not the goal, peace is. You want to have peace of mind, and,
Mhm.
and I think in a relationship too, peace would be like the goal because it can't be all this happy dory.
Right. Well, I think that it's well, specifically when we talk about happy, quote unquote, the word happiness in a romantic relationship, that is so much influenced by our society, like that concept of a romantic relationship. If I'm with the right person, then it will be easy and it will flow. I'll feel safe all the time and we'll be happy and there'll never be any discord. And if we do argue, that means I'm with the wrong person. And that is simply not the case. Every relationship goes through cycles of harmony, disharmony, repair over the course of the entirety of the relationship and over the course of a meal. We can go through the cycle of harmony, disharmony, repair. And a lot of times in our society, couples read that disharmony as being a problem. And especially so because in our society, we kind of bounce from um, harmony to disharmony back up to harmony without understanding repair because we're not taught it. And it's actually that process of repair that helps to build trust, that helps to build intimacy in the relationship. So we're not looking for a lack of disharmony, right? We're looking for a process where we can experience repair, where we can experience accountability, vulnerability, and empathy.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like? Like example of harmony versus
Uh-huh.
disharmony. What do they look like? And then we can get into the repair part.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I don't know, even as we're talking about it, I kind of feel it in my body, that harmony is like the warm, fuzzy, feel good, right? Of course we want that all the time. Of
Yeah.
course. The disharmony is the out. I call it the ouch. And that usually oftentimes that lands and resonates for people.
Mhm.
So that moment of disharmony is an ouch, or in RLT, we also call it the whoosh, WHOOSH. It's like that experience that we're like, here we go again,
Yeah.
right?
Every person like that's in a relationship would be aware of that feeling.
Of course, because
Yeah.
we are in relationship with other human beings who are
Yeah.
fallible and make
Yes.
mistakes and are
Yeah.
human and not
Hmm.
always a delight. And I have to remind myself that I too am not always a delight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But
And it's like sorry, go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like that part of it is so important, right? Having insight into your own things and having ownership of what you're bringing in.
That's the accountability piece. And we really, in RLT, another thing that sets this work apart is that in many ways, it in a lot of ways, it's based on a recovery model, and we are talking
Mhm.
about relational recovery, and we're specifically talking about the work that I can do on my side of the relationship because I'm the only one that I can control. And
Yeah.
how do I do that work and keep my side of the relationship, quote unquote, clean so that I can show up as the best version of myself so that my partner can do the same thing and we have more of a likelihood to get more of what we want.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pivot a little bit and then we can
Yeah,
come back to it.
sure.
The individual work, right?
Yeah.
So each person has their own individual therapy and they should be having their individual therapy working on whatever is going on with them, right? So when they bring it into
Well,
what they've
yeah.
worked on, how does that work? How does
Well,
that
it's
look?
interesting because, yes, oftentimes people do have their individual therapist. And
Mhm.
also, there are so many elements in this model where we are doing individual work in the context of the
Mhm.
relationship. So that's what's really cool.
Mhm.
And instead of kind of siloing that out and each individual doing their own work apart from the couple dynamic, there are elements of that individual work that we bring into the couple session so that that experience in and of itself of the partner witnessing that work builds an additional level of connection and intimacy and empathy.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really beautiful and powerful
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you, in a session, when you're having one person, like focusing on that one person's individual work,
Mhm.
avoid the whole, oh, m- my couples therapist is taking my spouse's or my partner's side? How do you deal with that?
Um, I'm gonna out myself and I'm gonna out the model. We actually do take sides
Yeah,
and we take the side of the relationship. So we take
absolutely.
the side of the moment and the person in that moment who's behaving more relationally. And to be fair, this is a pattern between like my husband and I have our own patterns, right? We both
Mhm,
bring unrelational things to the dynamic of our
mhm,
relationship. And sometimes that's symmetrical in a couple, and sometimes
mhm,
it's a little bit less balanced. And when it's
mhm,
a little bit less balanced, then after we go through, there are 3 phases to RLT without getting into a lot of specifics. But the first phase is data gathering so that we have a really clear understanding
yeah,
about the dynamics of the pattern and what it looked like,
mhm, mhm,
even if a
mhm,
video camera were
yeah,
recording the interactions with the couple,
yeah,
so that
yeah,
we can assess and get an understanding of when this couple is in their history colored lens of unrelationality, what is the pattern that's going on, right?
mhm,
There are moments that the couple isn't in that pattern, and that's great. Those are moments of connection and
mhm,
harmony. But what happens when things go sideways? And when we get that clear understanding, then we join through the truth and we say, hey, partner A, this is what you're telling me that you want from this relationship.
mhm,
And I've got good news and bad news for you about that. That's possible. What you're wanting is possible, but you're never going to get that doing what you're doing right now. I can help you. I can understand where that comes from. I understand in your history, that's how you learn to handle situations like this. Makes perfect sense. And it was really helpful for you at some point in your past. But it's time to reroute and to update the operating software, right? And give you a more skillful way of handling things.
yeah. That part is the repair part where you're teaching them repair skills.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
You want to know if I were to boil down repair to like 101 a phrase, this is what it would sound like. You have an ouch.
Mhm.
I don't want you to feel hurt. I don't want us to be disconnected. Is there anything that I can do or say right now that would help you to feel better? Now, how is that landing even as you hear me say it? What happens for you?
I'm thinking about, like, what that would look like in my relationships. I think that I think that's the most, like, difficult part, asking in that moment, "What can I say?" And I think part of it being not sounding sarcastic, you know?
Right.
I think that's a talent too, because the other person can perceive it as, "Oh, now you're being sarcastic."
Right. Well, that is a beautiful way of describing in what we call this work our adaptive child, that old
Mhm,
historical way. When our brain state is not regulated, when we're wearing history colored glasses, when we're
mhm,
being sarcastic, when we are being loud and angry, when we're being controlling, when we want to be right.
mhm,
These are all
mhm,
losing strategies. And so it's recognizing a big part of the work is recognizing what part of me is wanting to talk or take action right now. Is it
mhm,
that what we call adaptive child, that part of us that has those history colored glasses on and
mhm.
wants to use those losing strategies? Or
Yeah.
is my more mature relational self on board so that it
Mhm,
doesn't come out as sarcastic? It comes out
mhm.
as empathic and compassionate.
And then if the other person, and that would be me, says, "I don't know what you
Yeah,
what I wanna hear. I don't
right.
know." Yeah,
Yeah,
so what in that
I know.
circumstance, that
Isn't
partner that is being kind,
isn't
what
it
do they need to do?
interesting? Isn't it interesting? Because then what I would make up about that, as a couples therapist is that your work on your side of the road would be to get a better understanding of what the things that would be helpful for you. I don't know how close that is or, you know, maybe I'm quite a bit off, but just for example, it would be helping a partner like you get a better understanding of what would be helpful. What your partner could do or say that would be helpful.
Yeah,
How's that land as you
and
hear me say it?
I'm thinking about, like, how in that moment you wanna think about, like, the first thing that came to my mind was the previous traumas, right? That would make me feel
Right.
like, "Just leave me alone." Like, that's what I need, right?
Yeah.
Going into that
Yeah.
bubble and just, like,
Totally.
hiding, right?
Yeah.
So it does take a lot of work to remember that this person is not that person, I'm not in that situation, and that's the
That's
work.
that's Are we the same person? Because I feel like what you just said has been part of my own relational recovery work, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
like that protective factor of like, I'm just going to remove myself from this.
Mhm.
I'm going to go into my cave. That's going to be protection for me. You
Mhm.
stay out
Mhm.
there. I'm going to be in here. And so, yeah, that is more of the individual work that I have had to do on my side of the road to contain my adaptive child that wants to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was gonna say it's constant work, right? Like, you can't be like, "Oh, now I've gotten to the point." You can easily fall back in that previous state.
Well, we call it a recovery practice and we call it
Mhm.
relational mindfulness to
Yeah.
understand if we're in that previous state or if we're in the updated, more mature state. And just
Mhm.
like any other practice, any other mindfulness practice, it is a moment by moment kind of checking in. And at first, it's a lot of work. I mean, again, people say couples work, being in relationship is a lot of work. This is the work. And at
Yeah.
first, it does feel, oh man, this is effortful. But as we
Yeah.
put in more and more reps, it becomes easier and easier,
Mhm.
like serving a tennis ball.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can see myself now. I can't say anything about my partner, right? They have to figure that out for themselves, but myself that I need to work on that trauma reaction and
Uh-huh.
get going into that bubble.
Right.
And because I put myself into that bubble, obviously I'm not gonna know what I want you to say or do because now I just.
Totally. Totally. Because usually we have bubbled off from the external world and we have even learned how to bubble off and wall off from ourselves. So
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that I really liked that you said was that overall relationships can be in the harmony, disharmony, repair phase, but just over dinner that can be happening.
Isn't
And
that so
so,
true as you think about it?
yes, absolutely. Right. Just in like a little period of time, you can go through those phases. And I think the most difficult thing for most people is like remembering the repair part in those little situations because those little make up the big, right? The big
Totally.
disharmony.
Yeah, 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 because that's like the death by a thousand paper cuts as those
Mhm.
things add up. Yeah. But our society, we don't learn repair. We don't
Mm-mm.
talk, nobody knows what repair is. And a version of repair is, what I've come to understand for myself is I don't have to accept the invitation to every argument that I that is put in front of me. And to be generous, we have in RLT, we have 5 losing strategies and then we have 5 winning strategies. And part
Mhm.
of the winning strategy is being generous and scanning for yes. Like as as if I can just share personally, would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my husband and I are high school sweethearts. Aw.
I know. That's amazing, right? Like, how long and how much work.
Oh, totally, totally, totally. I mean, we met each other when we were 15 years old. We have been together for 35 years. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary. And it has been all of the ups and downs that you would imagine, right? Imagine that would be part of it. And, as I'm sharing, I'm completely forgetting where I was going with this. What were we talking about for you?
We were talking about the harmony, disharmony, repair
Yeah,
phases
yeah,
and
yeah.
how it's constant
Yeah,
work.
yeah. Yeah. And, it's interesting because I think a lot of times, we have the phases of harmony, disharmony, repair. Those have been the ups and downs for us throughout our relationship. We had a pretty solid relationship before my partner and I started doing this work, started learning this work, started practicing this work, started
Mm.
working with couples, starting teaching it. This understanding of relational recovery and it has completely transformed our relationship and we're closer than I would have ever dreamed. That still doesn't mean perfect, right? We have a different understanding now of how to navigate the disharmony
Mhm.
when it happens, right?
Right.
We don't experience those things as like the end of everything. Oh my gosh, now we need to like throw in the towel, we're done.
Mhm.
We have this well greased, okay, but we're quicker to apologize. We're quicker to understand the impact of our behavior on one another. And we're quicker to say, I don't want to fight. Do you want to fight?
Mhm.
Let's not do this. Why don't
Mhm.
we put on some music and enjoy dinner together?
Mhm.
Right. And that is totally possible. And that is not at all sweeping things under the rug because we have a different skill set to be able to talk about the hard things more constructively because we've
Mhm.
learned to speak from that part of ourselves that's more interested in being grown up and relational than is interested in wearing the history colored glasses and being right and going in our bubble and all of those losing strategies that happen.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like how everyone talks about Gottman's, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Four Horsemen,
Yeah.
and that's like more common and more, I guess
Yes.
people are looking for that when they're asking for couples therapy.
Because Gottman has been around for like 50 years. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for my approach, the way I have approached it, I did do Gottman's. I practiced it. I didn't do like an official course in it, but during residency, I was lucky enough to have like
Yeah.
attendings that like, gave me
Yeah.
supervision and every single whatever I was interested in. So I was
Yeah.
very lucky in that aspect. But
That's
like
great.
when as I have grown, I usually bring in psychodynamic stuff. And
Yeah.
the stuff that I what I'm understanding is a relational life therapy. It has some principles, but it's more so getting into that dynamic and deep diving into your thoughts and not just the don't stonewall and don't do like, just
Right.
like
It
those.
goes deeper. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're hitting the nail on the head. And that's, I
Yeah.
mean, I did train in Gottman and Gottman's a great model and it's
Yeah.
very
Absolutely.
research based and it's very skills based. And to your point, it's kind of missing that. I mean, couples can learn skills all day long. You can read a book, you can listen to a podcast. There's so
Mhm.
many ways to learn skills.
Mhm.
That's not the problem. The challenge is dealing with the part of us that doesn't care about using the skill in the moment when we need it most. And that's why I appreciate RLT and that's what RLT does.
Mhm. Mhm. It's basically, yes, this is the skill, but how to use the skill.
Yeah. So I mentioned there are 3 phases to RLT and that
Yeah.
first phase is what we call data gathering. It's getting a really
Mhm.
clear understanding about the
Mhm.
relational dynamics
Right,
that
right, right.
are impacting the couple. That that
Mhm.
second stage or the second phase is that relational mindfulness practice of understanding that what we call the adaptive child or that part of us that wears the history color glasses that's more interested in survival and safety and like using those losing strategies than being in the relationship and
Mhm.
building that wise adult part of us to grow that
Mhm.
so that that part can
Mhm.
put limits on the part of us that behaves in ways that are damaging, right? We all know, gosh, if I yell and scream at my partner, that's going to lead to a bad night.
Mhm. Yep.
You and I are aware if I remove myself and go into a bubble, that's going to cause some problems with the relationship. But it's knowing how to interact with that part of us that still wants to use that strategy to say to that part, no, that comes at too much of a cost. We don't do it that way. Here's a more skillful way of protecting yourself using protective psychological boundaries, for example.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to when you said yelling and screaming, right? So I've
Hmm.
been through that type of relationship, and I think
Hmm.
that's what's gotten me to getting in my bubble type of relationship because I don't
Yeah.
wanna yell and scream, so
Yeah.
rather than like, that's that phase. And so now
Yeah.
it's like, "Okay, like, how do
Yeah.
we not go into the bubble and not yell and scream?"
Totally. And we call that the
Right.
center of relational health, right?
Yeah.
That no, more nuanced place. It's interesting as you're talking based on my history and what was modeled for me and what I used to protect myself growing up. I can do both. My
Mhm.
primary go-to is to withdraw,
Mhm.
but I can also yell and scream.
Mhm.
And based on my own history, I thought that when I yelled and screamed in my marriage, that was a bigger problem until my husband said to me, no, actually,
Mhm.
that's not the problem. This is that parent. Like I am familiar with that from this parent. I have more of a
Mhm.
problem relationally when you wall off, when you go into your bubble. That's much more damaging, right? That hurts more.
Right.
And so now when I'm wanting to like when every part of me wants to like go in that bubble, I remind myself, sure, you can do that, but it's going to
Yeah.
come at a cost.
Yeah.
And the cost is to the relationship, and the cost is damaging to my partner who I care a lot about, but it also costs me, right? Relational ecology helps me to understand that using these losing strategies doesn't only hurt my partner, it hurts the relationship, and ultimately it hurts me. And
Mhm.
doing the more mature thing brings relational joy,
Yeah.
right? It's the harder thing in the moment. So it's
Mhm.
maybe not that instantaneous gratification, but long term, it feels better.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when you said that you guys were high school sweethearts, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like long marriages that I have
Yeah.
seen in my culture. And, it's a lot of the times one person is compromising
Right.
and not really happy
Right.
or, at peace. And I've seen that a lot, right? It's
Totally.
mostly women in my culture that like
Totally.
just
I think it's mostly
took
women in a
it,
lot of cultures. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right.
A lot of
And so
patriarchal
that is
cultures.
not a healthy
Yeah.
example of a relationship either, where
No.
you're just pretending that things
No.
are okay or just, ignoring it or, closing your eyes to what's going
Yeah.
on. And I think
Yeah.
that that's also like I'd never saw my parents argue.
Uh-huh.
I never saw my aunt and uncle argue, which now I do. Sometimes they'll do it, and I'm just
Uh-huh.
like, "Thank you for
Yeah.
actually, like, disagreeing in front of the kid." Like, we're not kids anymore, but thank you, like, for doing
Totally.
that because
Yeah.
I never saw anyone disagree. Like, my
Yeah.
grandparents raised me, never saw them
Yeah.
disagree
Yeah.
until they were older, right?
Yeah.
And then they were disagreeing all the
Well,
time.
until the lid came off, they couldn't keep the lid on
Yeah.
it any longer.
And it was, like, health issues and, like, just, they got older,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, my grandmother got irritable because she wasn't feeling well, right? So
Yeah.
basically that's what happened, and that's how the arguments came about. She didn't used
Yeah.
to say anything at
Mhm.
all. She was just
Mhm.
very patient, and so that was not a good, any
No.
examples that I saw were
Yeah.
just not good examples. And so I think that it's constant work for me to remind myself that, okay, we're not going to fall in that pattern either.
Well, can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Um, one of the reasons that I love this model so much is I talked about that power dynamic before.
Mhm. Mhm.
And what you're describing is like these power over relational dynamics that often, that can be culturally influenced. And one of the ways that we kind of assess the patterns in our relationship is taking into consideration our cultures and all of that, right? We believe in RLT that we all deserve a cherishing relationship that is same as each partner gets a say in the relationship and in their happiness. We want soft power. We don't part of that assessing for that power dynamic is when there is a power over dynamic, we want the person in that power over dynamic to come into same as, to come in relationality, to say,
Mhm.
I'm no better, no worse. What I want is not any more or less important. And we want that person who has been historically disempowered to come into same as, to find a relational voice, to find soft power. So soft
Mhm.
power all the way around. Yeah. Does that speak a little bit to what you were describing? Because we don't want people we call that misery stabilization, right? We
Mhm.
don't, yeah, that really landed for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
For, even for and I absolutely love my parents-in-law, but their
Sure.
relationship too, right?
Right?
Again, same culture.
Yeah.
You
My
know?
parents have a
So
my parents have had a misery stabilizing relationship too. Yeah.
yeah, and then, like, as one person's mood and actions just kinda affect the other person's mood and
Mhm.
actions, even if they are toxic, and that's just hard
Mhm.
to watch from the
Yeah.
outside.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, now you're feeling good because your partner has stopped their toxic behavior
Mhm.
and, it wasn't dealt with, but now, you're saying you're happy because, whatever.
Right,
And
because
how
there's
long is
an
that gonna
alleviation. Yeah. Yeah, an alleviation of that, at least that moment of misery that has been the
Mhm.
misery stable. Yeah.
It's like, harmony and disharmony without the repair jumping to harmony,
That's
the
it.
repair is missing there.
That's exactly what that's exactly what we're describing. Yeah. Yeah. And that happens over and over and over again because there is no way that we know to say, hey, that actually doesn't feel good for me. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do instead. As a favor for me, will you say it this way? Your tone is pretty harsh. It doesn't feel good. Can you soften your tone? That would mean a lot to me, right? That's the soft power that I'm talking about. This is what I need by way of repair. Right. And so it's noticing it for our partner, but then it's also asking for it when we're in need of it. Because guess what? Our partner can't read our minds.
Right. Yes.
Another one of those
Most importantly.
another one of those societal things that we think, yeah, if it's true love, then we'll always be in harmony. It will always feel good and safe. And my partner will just know without me having to say. But that's bypassing the vulnerability. That's part of every connected relationship.
Exactly. I can't remember who I was saying this to, but just a couple of days ago, I was saying exactly that you do realize that your partner can't read your mind.
Yeah.
You need to say this out
Yeah.
loud
Yeah.
of what you want, what you need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not going to know. Right.
I have a saying that you can't be resentful for something that you haven't asked for.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, I think that and this is from my own experience, and I've kind of grown out of this, is that, you actually, I don't know where this concept came from and who built it, but that, if somebody loves you and they know you. And nobody can really know somebody. Like, we're all in our own bodies.
You say all the time, my husband and I have been together for 35 years. I've got some solid data points about how I think he's feeling and what I think he's thinking. And I still am not going to assume. I'm still going to check that out with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, sometimes you can read that they're upset, right? But
Yeah.
what they're upset about or
Exactly.
how exactly they're
Yep.
feeling or what solution they need to it, you can't
Right.
guess.
Right.
Right? No matter
Right.
how long you've been with the other person,
Right.
people change, people grow. We're
Totally.
humans, we're not in
Well,
boxes.
or we're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Our nervous system is activated in different ways. Yeah. And that goes back to, when couples come in and they're like, we want to improve our communication. That's part of it because so much of us just kind of jump to all of these assumptions about what we think is happening with our partner without actually checking that out. Right. And so part of improving communication is being able to simply say, hey, it seems like something might be going on for you. What's happening? And doing that in a loving, relational way. Not, oh my God, I can't believe what's wrong with you.
Yeah. I'm thinking the opposite as you were saying that. Figure it out.
Yes. Yes. What's wrong with you? You're a grown ass adult. Excuse me. I knew something was going to
You're fine. You're fine.
I knew it was going to slip out at some point. But yeah, hey, you're an adult and figure it out. Like,
yeah. You figure out how I'm feeling or what I need. Go figure it out. Like, I have done that. That's guilty.
Totally.
And no,
Totally.
he can't figure
No.
it out.
Yeah.
Right? Your partner cannot. No.
Yeah. And also assigning the meaning to if he loves me, he'll figure it out. And if he doesn't love me, he'll decide not to.
Yeah.
And we do that.
And
We make meaning of so much stuff like that. Yeah.
And I don't know where this came from because this is not even a culture. This is all across the board. I don't know if it's like the Disney movies that created that happily. I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they don't do that anymore. But, I don't know exactly where that originated, but it is so much like, oh, this person will understand. In my culture, another thing is that if you speak sarcastically or passive aggressive, that's in a way considered to be a form of love. And that is just so unhealthy and so painful.
Yeah.
And getting out of that is just so hard.
Yeah, it is. And, again, this is in RLT, we learn how to rock the boat relationally. And we also learn that we keep speaking up, right? My husband has a PhD in sarcasm. And he will say things from time to time and I'll say, that's not funny.
Yeah.
And he'll say, oh, I was just kidding. And I'll say, And still, I'm telling you, my experience of it is that it's not funny for me. Please
Mhm,
don't say it
mhm.
that way.
Yeah. I think I'm the one in my relationship that's sarcastic, you know? And
I
that's why
can
I guess I
I
was
can also
thinking.
dish it out. I can also dish it out.
Yeah.
I think most of us do.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a very, like, that's what I keep catching myself in, like, passive aggressive comments that I'll make and, just, sarcasm that I'll use. I'm very aware of that right now. I do that a lot and have to
I
catch myself in it.
Yeah, and I think that there's so much of this is again, I mentioned before that relationships include vulnerability, accountability, and empathy. And so a big part of it is, gosh, if I were in my partner's shoes, how would it be to be talked to like this? Or,
Mhm,
gee, my partner has told me that this doesn't feel good, right? And
mhm.
so there's that piece, and then that holding ourselves accountable. That's not the person that I want to be in this relationship.
Yeah.
That doesn't align with the relationship that I want. It doesn't align with my values and integrity. That's not how I want to be treated.
That was the wrap up for part 1 of this episode, Beyond the Honeymoon. We will be talking more about love in the second part. Stay tuned. It's coming out February 14th. Before we close, I always ask, how are you really doing? Thank you so much for spending this time with us on How Are You Really? If something in this episode spoke to you, send it to a friend, leave a review, or follow the show. It really helps. Until next time.